Miss Naja.
George.
You're dapping. What's dap?
So, Dapper Dan is a designer. So he used to do like Label Mania. You ever heard of Label Mania?
How
Label
many
Mania.
cease and desists has he gotten from Gap?
So he
That's
did
my
Label
question.
Mania, right? Back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Super popular. Gucci sued him. Like he would take fake Gucci fabric, real Gucci fabric, and make his own designs. They sued him, took everything from him, and then they started using it a few years ago on runways. The exact same designs. So they did a collaboration with him. Gucci did, and so Gap has done this collaboration with him.
Oh,
yeah.
So it's a collab with Gap. So because guys, for those of you who listen only, she's wearing a hoodie that says Dap on it.
Yes, yes. So
I'm
it's very historic. He's a black designer, and some of the institutions righted their wrongs, and so he's getting all these brand deals.
So cool.
The Met Gala this year, he's one of these dandyism. Like he's a huge historian.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so I bought this for $235 from Gap.
Ouch.
And I only did it to support him because
Gap sells expensive hoodies like that?
Well, this one, you know.
Okay. Well, anyway,
So tell us about your hoodie because George, I'm not used to seeing you in casual.
The hoodie
we call it streetwear.
Yeah, it's streetwear.
I love this.
So the hoodie is a heirloom at this point. My uncle who passed away, Uncle Mark, passed away in August of last year.
Rest in peace, Uncle Mark.
It was pretty interesting. In 2007, he ordered 3,000 of these black champion hoodies with the WTF air bubble on it and said, I'm going to make a fortune out of this. And, long and behold, there's still 2,000 of them left.
Oh! So I feel like we should put them on the website or something.
I should, right? I should start pushing WTF hoodies.
Bring me one.
Well, you know what? I will. The problem is they're all big, so I will bring you one.
I love big baggy hoodies.
I will bring you a WTF hoodie next time.
So we're both
like
in our streetwear, and this was actually George's idea.
It was.
Of our guests for
I've been dying to wear this pants and sneaker that I bought over a year ago.
I love seeing this look on you.
It's pretty different. So,
it's different. I like it. I think it's
I feel uncomfortable in my skin though. It's
I
so
can't
funny.
wait to see what the audience thinks about today's look.
Let's see. Absolutely.
Liar, pants on fire. Liar, pants on fire.
Anyway, so today's guest, super controversial. I mean, super controversial, but has a massive following between all his platforms. We're talking millions of followers. I've interacted with him once before today's interview on X, and we were supposed to be natural enemies, but it's just not. I don't operate like that.
The predator and the prey.
Yeah, it's like I don't operate like that.
Yeah.
But we're interviewing Destiny today, and there's this thing where people genuinely hear his name and they either really like him or they really hate him. So
what do you think? How am I going to feel about him? You genuinely can peg me.
I mean,
what do you think?
You're going to like him. He's literally a megaphone to everything you stand for. So you're going to have a good time. I, on the other hand, am the opposite of everything he stands for.
Okay.
We might agree on a few issues, but that's pretty much it.
Controversial. For sure. And I didn't know of him until we got the list on who we're interviewing. And I'm like, first thing I do is go to Google.
Oh.
And I saw some things in the Google, honey.
You know what? My Google search page isn't interesting either like that. It's not, I mean, it's not flattering.
His is more interesting than yours. And there's some things I want to ask him, like about his life and experiences.
You want to share notes?
Press the button now.
And it's great to have you in studio. So I was talking to my team who managed me. Debbie was telling me that your guys have been reaching out to my guys for quite some time to go on your podcast. And I guess there was an impasse or whatever. Full disclosure, open to doing your podcast. You're here. I will go on yours. I want to start with that because I think it's fair to say, like, I haven't gone on yours and here you are. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being here in New York in person.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Wait, excuse me. Did you know that he was evading coming on your podcast? I'm not trying to start stuff. So
No.
But were you aware of
evading.
that? Sounds like you're evading because Debbie didn't answer. Were you aware of that?
I mean, I'm a big bully online, so it makes sense that.
So he was afraid, maybe.
My guess is it's probably, you know how it goes. It's probably like somebody was communicating that didn't communicate something up, and
Okay.
I'll say this.
That's diplomatic.
Yeah.
I like that.
But all right, so Destiny, like 90% of the people on my side of the aisle would call me crazy for sitting with you. I don't listen to 90% of the side of the aisle. I tend to I go out of the mold. I don't care. So what led you to start a category of being a social media influencer who doesn't just dip your toes in politics, but nosedives in politics?
I think my background, when I was born and then up through high school, my mom is Cuban, so she's like very, very
You're
politically,
Hispanic?
if that counts, I guess.
I mean, Cuban, yeah, of
I've
course.
heard people argue back and forth, but
You can be any ethnicity you want on this
thank you.
podcast.
True, that's right. That's why I'm
It's
a
all
progressive.
ish.
Exactly. I've heard that one before. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in a very politically active household. A lot of like arguing and debate. That side of my family are very much like they scream at each other when they're having a discussion, and then at the end everybody's cool. And then from 18 to 22, I guess, and earlier than that, I was very much like an online person. And the online chat rooms and everything are very, very, very brutal. Okay, like horrible, terrible stuff that would, if those logs existed, half the people that used to exist back then would not exist online today.
AOL type chat rooms?
Way, way, way worse than that.
Oh.
Stuff that would make Hitler blush. Okay. Very, very, very,
Jesus.
yeah, very degenerate, very horrible stuff. But coming from that environment, and then I was a professional gamer for a while, and then around 2016, I got into politics. I kind of had the very edgy, abrasive background, but my politics was like kind of left-leaning, and there was nobody that really did that. And the right kind of had this monopoly on facts over feelings, and we're going to debate you, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, well, I can do that. And then that was kind of how I cut my teeth early on, was debating right-wingers in a really aggressive way, basically.
Who's your first debate with?
Oh, man.
At least notable person, right?
First, I mean, back then it would have been the first like probably really, really big one was a guy called Jontron, who's a big
clue.
YouTube guy. I also debated a lot of the like Nick Fuentes and Lauren Southern and like those types of, I'll say like alt-right was the word we used back then, I guess those types of figures. A lot of people who would show up at J6 or get convicted later on, I guess. Like I debated like Joe Biggs on gun control, stuff like that. Yeah, basically everybody that's been kind of in that. I think Stefan Molyneux, these kind of people. Yeah, Sargon of Akkad. I don't know if you're right.
These are all Naja's friends.
Oh yeah. Okay.
What is your biggest gripe with the alt-right?
With the alt-right.
Yeah.
Is that a real thing? Is that like?
I mean, I like the term. It's cool. It's better than calling them racist. But what's your biggest gripe with them?
Back then or today? Because I say the movements have kind of changed a bit.
Okay. Starting off back then. And then I want to also ask how they've transitioned and transformed to today.
I think back then, I mean, I'm trying not to use any trigger words, but
no, please trigger me. I
I'm
love
kind of
it.
trigger service. Neo-Nazi was like a very accurate kind of way to encompass a lot of those beliefs. A lot of the people were very like, I think Stefan Molyneux flew to Poland and was crying because it was so beautiful how many white people there were. And that kind of like the very anti-brown immigration, like that stuff. I thought that was kind of, I just didn't like the negative tinge of all of it, I guess. Like,
That's pretty bad, yeah.
yeah. But no, I mean, not necessarily just because of the racism, but because I feel like the story that they told of America was just very sad, I thought. That like everything had come from like white European people and nobody else made any contributions, and that just kind of bothered me.
And then what about now? Who they've become now?
Now I think the term alt-right isn't really used anymore. I don't see it much. Now you kind of got like the MAGA movement that came more from the Tea Party than the alt-right, but there's been kind of some fusion there.
What do you call your people? Like, what do y'all call?
Americans.
You're an independent now, right?
I'm an independent these days. Yeah. I mean, look, I dish out shit to each and every faction of every party. I don't care. Okay. They're a bunch of frauds. It's like, I love how they like to pin me.
We can agree on that.
But they're all frauds. I mean, I saw Capitol Hill from the inside. So for me,
I like this, George.
but I'm still conservative.
Don't
I'm
like
like
that
conservative independent, right? But the reality is, I mean, yes, I'm a very much Trump supporter, and that's not going to change, right? It's never going to change.
I'm glad you guys admitted it.
I admit it. It's never going to change.
It will.
It's
It
like,
can change.
It cannot.
I don't know.
No. I have
He's
said
not
this
intrinsic
before.
with it, and I know that. I've already psychoanalyzed him. It's not an intrinsic thing.
Donald Trump can go on Fifth Avenue right now and shoot someone, and it would not change my support for him because I would probably find it justifiable.
God.
Yes.
You
I am
should
okay
not
with
have
that.
said that,
That sounds
on this podcast.
insane.
You should not
I
have
know,
said
it's
that.
insane, but I'm
That
just
is-
trying.
So you realize how indoctrinated you
It's
must
not
be?
indoctrination.
Your brain is fried. Do you hear what you just said? He could go and shoot somebody.
Yes,
and he's not
because-
God. He's not Buddha, Jesus, any of our other higher powers. That
I don't.
I bring I have questions in mind when I'm arguing with Trump
Go.
supporters, and one of the questions
Please
that I
ask,
have,
'cause it's
well,
you.
it's too late now because one of my questions is like, what's the line for you? Because I feel like every time
There
a
is
line
no
is
line.
It's not racism. It's
Well,
not
obviously, yeah.
being a predator.
It's not deporting people. It's not being.
It's not deporting people that
rapist,
look
it's not
like
any of
you
these
that are in
things,
your
I
own
guess.
It's not
family.
commercials at the White House.
Yeah. Oh, the car commercials.
Right, just like Joe Biden did for Jeep.
Okay, here I'm just curious. So here's a question, okay? Because you've been involved in government, you've had quite the background and everything else. How do you, when you think of America and you think of like the history of America, what are like cool standout moments to you? Where if you had children or if you were talking to younger kids, you're like, this is why America was such a cool country.
Lincoln and the liberation of slaves and trying to end something that I believe is the darkest past of our country.
He did not abolish slavery because it benefited the enslaved African. I don't call them slaves anymore, by the way. They're enslaved people. So he did not do that for the benefit of those human beings that were treated like cattle. He did that for a financial benefit. That's historically proven.
Let's go later on. There is a quote saying if Lincoln said if he could, I think, reunite the North and South, by freeing all the slaves, he'd do it. By freeing some of the slaves, he'd do it. And I think by freeing none of the slaves, he'd do it. I think that's a quote. But regardless, a little bit more in history, like forward, I
in
guess.
history, for me, like when I point back, is every time we were able to correct a fault.
Would you say like World War I, World War II, going to the moon?
I think going to the moon was great, even though there's questions surrounding that. We all know that the broadcast was actually a simulation. Now,
Oh, man.
Was that proven?
I didn't know I was going on the Joe Rogan experience. Hold on, I gotta
hold on. People
shift my
people
brain.
are
Oh, man.
saying that the broadcast was a simulation.
I've heard that,
I subscribe to we went to the moon.
Okay.
Personally, I subscribe to that belief.
I would like to think that we
Me
did. Why
too.
not?
I subscribe to that belief, but I'm just saying people
The
are now
Easter
saying
Bunny,
that
like there's all these things we can choose to believe. I choose to believe. that.
again, I
agree.
choose to believe we
Do
went
you
to the
think
moon.
we went to the moon?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so do I.
And I don't think any of the broadcasts could have possibly been simulations.
My
Like I
wife
said.
thinks that we did not go to the moon, and she will not budge. It's outrageous.
You see, so I believe we went to the moon. I'm subscribed to that thought, right? I points in time in history that I enjoy are when we abolished slavery, when we abolished segregation, when we gave women rights. These are all things I appreciate
All
as a
things
person.
that white men took away from people.
But
That's
they were
crazy
also
that we
given
get
by
to
white
enjoy
men.
them. They were
Bad white men took it away, but good white men gave
It
it
was
back.
some of the good ones that benefited too.
Well, what I'm just saying is you can't just blame.
I don't know if those are good. I think he's looking for more recent examples.
mean,
that
Yeah,
what?
well, here, this
He
is,
said
I guess,
history, and that's how I look at our history.
one of the things I'm thinking of that I don't like about kind of the current Republican Party's isolationist bend is
I don't like that either.
Oh, okay. Because I look at like the situation in Ukraine, and I think it's really sad that the United States has just like completely abandoned that position.
The situation in Ukraine, I'm super sympathetic to it.
Oh boy.
But
No.
there's a but
Hear me
coming.
out. It's not a but. I hate Vladimir Putin. I've been on the record. I'm actually barred from going to Russia. And I visited Russia prior to my political. I'm a theater kid, so I love
What did you do to get barred from? We'll put a pin in that.
Well, no. What I did was like, have you seen my speeches on the floor about Vladimir Putin? Oh, they're not pretty. On the congressional record, they will live forever, right? I am no fan of Vladimir Putin, of any dictator or mass murderer, as I like to call
But
them.
you love your God, Donald
He's
Trump.
not my god. He's my president, and I like him because he
Who can
relates.
shoot somebody in the street in the daytime.
Whatever. That was a
and he did.
metaphor.
No,
but-
you meant that.
Okay, whatever. So my point here to you is, if we're gonna really talk about Ukraine and Russia, I want peace, and I think you want peace, and I think we all want peace.
Nobody. That's no.
I want peace because peace means no more lives being killed.
Yeah, but we'd never use that standard as a conflict anywhere else, right? Like the Revolutionary War in the United States, that was very unpeaceful.
It was very unpeaceful. I agree,
War
but
is typically the opposite of peace.
But
though.
understand this. Do we want the United States to intervene to squash it, or do we want the United States to intervene to continuously fund it? A, it's expensive. B, there's a life toll that is unsurmountable.
We bring up the life toll. I guess if we're leaning into black issues, we can quote more MLK. What is it that the complaint about the white moderate in that letter from a Birmingham prison? I think he wrote that they prefer a negative peace to a positive justice. So basically the idea that as long as everybody shuts up and chills, everything is better than people actively fighting against systems of, in the 60s, right, it was segregation and stuff. But I guess the issue that I have when people bring up peace so much is nobody really wants peace. People want justice. You can always have peace, right? You just give up. You can always surrender any war. But it just seems strange to the country, who who says, give me liberty or give me death, would look to another country and say, maybe if you guys just like give up 20% of your territory.
I don't think they should.
But that's what Trump's negotiating.
Well, like I said, I don't think they should. And Volodymyr Zelensky, to his own credit, said he was willing to give up certain parts of Ukraine.
Because Trump is making him do it, right?
No, that was prior to Trump even coming in to telling him
because
that.
they have no other choice. But like this would be a circumstance I would imagine where the United States comes in and says, "Hey, this is wrong. It's a clear wrong." Like it's not like Israel Palestine where things
but
are
Destiny,
whatever. But this is like a thing
this,
where it's
Here, do you rather the United States intervene for peace, or do you rather them continue to fund war?
I would rather we fight for justice. I think it's
so
way
you
more
want them to
important.
continue to fund war.
Of course, I want
That's
them
nuts.
to. I want
the military-industrial complex wins, and I thought you were a guy who was totally against the military-industrial complex.
I love the military-industrial complex. I wish they would be more active, okay? Because we are completely abandoning Ukraine. But I mean, to that point, then let's say that Russia invades Poland. Do you say, well, we shouldn't fight at all because there might be death? Or if they invade Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania,
but if they invade Poland, then there's Article 5 of NATO.
So there's still going to be death involved.
Well,
right?
I understand, but then there's a whole
Article
alliance.
5 is more important than death? Or?
It's not that Article 5. We have a moral obligation, just like they had a moral obligation to come to our aid after 9/11. So when we're talking Poland, it's a different story.
We don't have any moral obligation to Ukraine?
We don't.
There's a very clear bad guy, a very clear good guy.
In your opinion, what's the solution?
The solution is to tell Ukraine and to tell Russia that we're going to support Ukraine literally until they've completely given up fighting, and it's going to be the most painful incursion into sovereign territory that Russia's ever done.
What would that do for the U.S.'s relationship with Russia? And we see there's
our relationship with Russia is already horrible.
Do you think that benefits us, though?
How about we concern ourselves with our relationship with Europe, who is like currently looking at the United States as abandoning its entire post as leader of the free world, I guess. Or look at like places like Taiwan or other places under threat.
Do you think we should intervene in Taiwan and go to war with China?
I haven't done extensive research there, so I don't like to take a strong opinion, but I like the idea that everybody in the world is thinking, or was thinking, if we invade a place, the United States might show up and fuck our shit up. But right now with Ukraine, it kind of looks like that's not the case. Now it looks like the U.S. under Trump wants to play like big power politics, where it's like, as long as you're the big boy in the block, you can take over whatever you want and do whatever you want, kind of like how we're bullying our neighbors, Mexico and Canada right now.
That's divorced from reality, Destiny. That is not.
What's divorced from reality?
That is not how President Trump wants to lead the United States.
Why are we terrifying
that's how we
Canada and
look.
Mexico more than China? Our tariffs are bigger on our allies than China.
Well, I understand, but have you seen the tariffs that Canada and Mexico has imposed in the United States?
Yes,
unfairly?
they were all
Retaliation,
negotiated
though, right?
under Trump.
The
It's called the U.S. Mexico Canada trade
the
agreement. Yeah.
USMCA was a little bit of an improvement from NAFTA, but nowhere near sufficient to remedy all of the bad trading.
What bad
agreements.
trading stuff?
Dude, why are we taking in so much Canadian steel and shutting down our steel?
We're not shutting. We're a huge economy. Of course, we're importing a ton of stuff. That's good for us.
Sure, but we're importing more than we're producing domestic steel. That's a problem. And Canada,
Why is that a problem?
And Canada tariffs the shit out of us on steel. So I think it's not. Look.
Wait. Hold, just to be clear, okay, and I'll cite a wise man 6 years ago, Ben Shapiro, okay? If you look at high export economies, places like Iran, places like North Korea, places that have net exports, these are not good economies. You look at high importers, you look at people like the United States, the United Kingdom, like these are good economies. You would rather be somebody who's buying stuff because we're using it, right? Like I don't go to Walmart and think about my trade deficit with Walmart. I'm buying stuff because I'm using it. I would rather us be training software engineers and working on AI than having fabrication plants to make steel.
So look, all right, we're not going to agree there. But since you brought up Ben Shapiro, I actually wanted to ask you a very interesting question. Do you rather moderate a debate between Ben Shapiro and Hassan, or be trapped in an elevator with Jordan Peterson while he explains a food pyramid to you?
Am I allowed to argue with Jordan Peterson?
You're trapped, and he's explaining you the
Can
food
I
pyramid.
argue about it with
No.
him? Then I moderate the debate, I guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You'd rather moderate that debate?
It depends on the elevator. If I have anything to kill myself with, then maybe I would go with the elevator. But otherwise, I think I'm moderating the debate. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, I think Ben Shapiro and Hassan should take that offer up, and I think, guys, you should let Destiny moderate a debate between you guys. I think that would be gold.
Okay, but if you could argue with Peterson, like what would your argument be?
I don't know, man. We had one debate and it was a disaster. I mean, like in my mind, I feel like conservatives are just completely divorced from reality. So,
well, I mean, and I feel like you're completely divorced from reality.
I know. The difference is that I have all the facts on my side, but
okay.
I don't know. It would be over some very narrow factual point. Like I would want to have like a 4-hour debate on like excess deaths in Europe and talk about like the vaccine, or have like a 3-hour conversation about like climate change, or just like one narrow point. Because when you look at all these like long form podcasts like the Joe Rogans and everything that Jordan Peterson goes on, it's just 3 hours of yapping and rambling, and nobody actually dives in on any deep point. It feels like I'm just listening to Twitter being reposted in real time on the podcast for like
Sensory
3 hours.
overload. Yeah.
I love how you're saying like you're just dunking on X. You're on X though.
Like unwillingly.
No, you're not. Do you not make money on X?
No, Elon personally defunded or demonetized my account.
Oh,
so.
you're demonetized?
Personally?
Well, I mean, he showed. I don't know if it's him posting on his account or not, but
That's not really free speech of Elon. Elon,
He's
come
not
on.
known to be a free speech type of dude,
Yes,
though.
he is.
He's anti.
This
well,
is
they're
the
super
second
free
guy-
speech
We've had-
until they disagree with you, like how they're deporting all those Palestinian protester kids now, I guess, who are lawful permanent residents. But
They're
you
not
know,
lawful permanent residents. A lot of them are on visas.
The Khalid, whatever,
He was
Mahmoud
on
guy,
a visa. He was on a student visa.
He's a green card.
It doesn't matter. That doesn't give you
That's
the
a lawful
right.
permanent resident.
I understand, but it doesn't give you rights to be a resident.
Do you see how
Do you think
quickly
he
you
should
get?
have gotten deported?
Huh?
Do you think he should have gotten? Did he deserve
After
to be?
inciting what he did here in Columbia University, yes.
That's a
And
crazy
you know,
stance.
and you know how I am with immigration. I am not a hardliner on immigration like most Republicans are.
Why? What about the First Amendment? We don't think that
We have the First Amendment. The problem is when you're creating a hostile environment for Jewish students to attend school, which I witnessed. Nobody told me. I'm not going off of videos. I went to Columbia because some Jewish students that were from my old district asked me to go. And me and a couple of friends went to do kind of escort them to class without creating too much of a fuss. Well, that was a mistake on my part because obviously I was going to draw the most irate reaction from the protesters. That being said, I still did my part once. I figured I'm not good for this, but I witnessed the hostility of them saying, you will not enter school. You will not go to class.
Yeah, and I think that's bad.
Because you're,
But
so
if
that's
people are
bad.
blocking you, you should charge him with crimes or something.
Well, he was part of that problem.
Was he charged with a crime?
Well, no, because it's New York City, right? In 2020, in the summer of love, when everybody literally,
We're not talking about BLM. I know.
No, I'm not-
I know we got the pull to BLM for every
no,
single
no,
issue.
no. I'm not
But
pulling
I'm just
BLM.
saying. I'm just saying.
I'm not blaming
If
anybody.
he wasn't
I'm just-
charged with a crime, we're going to deport people for protesting for stuff that we don't
New
agree
York
with.
City and New York State chose to not charge him with a crime. The feds looked at that as criminal activity, as thug activity, and they decided to take action. It's indicative on them. The State Department controls issuances of green card, visas, and all of that. And the Secretary of State decided to revoke his green card. And,
Do you
and that
support
is
Joe Biden's pardoning of his son Hunter Biden?
I do. It's his dad.
Oh, okay.
I would have done the same. I disagree, politically, but I would have done the same. It's my kid. I'm not going to leave my kid out to
It's
dry.
so hard to predict what his responses are going to be.
I'm not going to. But
Maybe.
look,
Well, the issue is that
I'll go a
the
step
issue is
further.
that if you conservatives talk about the First Amendment so much that if people are getting banned from Facebook or X, which are two platforms, I think Donald Trump sued and he claimed that they violated his First Amendment right, which is ridiculous, but they settled anyway because he's friends with the CEOs. People will say that's a First Amendment
Wait,
violation.
is he friends with Mark Zuckerberg now?
Yeah, of course. They all showed up and donated money to his little thing, and Zuckerberg is on his whole
His
Trump
little
suck
thing.
up.
I mean, his inaugural fund.
Yeah, that he had the four richest men in the world, I think, standing behind him when he was doing his inauguration. But I'm just saying that when it comes to green card holders, now if the president declares somebody a terrorist group and you're protesting in support of them, you can be deported.
You're outta here.
You can have your green card revoked. That's insane. That's
So
No,
that's-
that's why.
That sounds like a good way to
That
suppress
happened-
free speech, though.
No,
It is.
You
It is.
shouldn't
That
be
would be
here
a
in
good
the
way to
first place
suppress
for
free speech,
sure.
wouldn't it? Yeah.
This happened literally in the city, the one city in this country that experienced an act of terror of insurmountable proportions, which was 9/11. You're going to tell me that people who are protesting and literally screaming Hamas talking points and flying the Hezbollah flag in New York City, that they have a free speech right to advocate for terror groups in this city? I mean, come on. In
Ironically,
this city?
I've talked about this on stream a couple times. The turning point in my life where I started to move from Republican slowly to libertarian and then over to liberal.
You were a Republican at one point?
My mom was Cuban. I was a hardcore. I wrote in my school newspaper defending the Iraq War and George Bush and everything else.
You see, and I hated the Iraq War and I hate George Bush.
One of
He's
the
a war
big turning
criminal.
points for me was 9/11 when I saw people in New York who were protesting against a mosque being built. And I was like, hold on. I don't think that's very American. I thought we were supposed to defend everybody's right to speak. What's that? I'll defend your right to speak even if I disagree with it or whatever.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
might disagree with it, but I'll die for your right to defend it,
essentially-
right? But I'm saying that yeah, so if you want to support the Palestinians or if you want to support whatever crazy thing in the United States, Nazis, whatever, you have the right to do so.
No,
It's disgusting.
I
but-
think if you're supporting any groups of extreme or terror, I do believe that officials can, in my opinion, look at you and say, I think you're a liability and you're not an American citizen and you were granted this green card, but it is not a birthright of yours. We gave it to you. We can take it away. And that's what they did. And I support that action. And it would have gone even if it was somebody from, I don't want to.
You would send this to like naturalized citizens? Is that what they got? If you
No, because once you become a citizen, you're a citizen, you have rights. It's a very high bar to actually revoke a naturalized citizen's citizenship. It's very, very high bar.
So basically, you're saying, hey, you're a guest in this country. You're in
A
our
green
house
card
now.
holder
You need
and
to
a visa,
chill.
yes.
You need to play by the rules. Be quiet. Be cool.
To
Stay
be clear,
in the box.
green card is a lot different than a visa.
I understand,
It's
but
hard to get a green card. Visas are very easy to get.
I'm not saying they're easy, but you're still not. You're not entitled to a green card.
Okay, so question. Next election cycle, Rashid Tlaib or the other one, Ilhan Omar, becomes president somehow, and they say, I declare the IDF a terror group. Do you think it would be okay to start deporting lawful permanent resident Jewish people that support Israel and have protests in favor of Israel because they're supporting a terror group, the IDF?
So if the president of the United States pulls a proclamation declaring any institution or any organization a terror organization, it falls within the law. Yes. Even though I disagree, but you're putting me to interpret the law. I'm going to interpret it fair. If the president of the United States turns around and says the IDF is a terror group, which I don't think anybody's going to do other than Rashida Tlaib, if there was anyone who would ever do it, or maybe AOC, I would challenge the designation. However, if it's upheld and it is customary and there are people doing,
Do you feel like spiritually, like in the spirit of the First Amendment, is just like a good...
I don't think it's a good road to go down, but
Okay.
you can't compare the IDF to Hamas, though.
I think you can.
I don't think you can. The IDF is the military is literally the military forces of a
Yeah,
country.
I understand. So
Hamas is a terrorist organization.
I don't want to go down the whole foreign policy route. So just online, I am known as like a Zionist simp, okay? Because I typically defend the Israeli side more than the
so do I.
Palestinian side.
Okay,
However, I will say one issue with terrorism over the past like 20 years is terrorist groups used to be like these non-state actors. They were like small groups like Al-Qaeda or maybe ISIS, although ISIS started to take over territory. I think the challenging thing with Hamas is that Hamas was the de facto or the de jure administrator to the Gaza Strip. So if you go out and you protest in support of the Palestinian people in Gaza, you're almost always supporting Hamas. You kind of have to be.
Oh, they had one
there.
election, right?
Sure, but I'm just saying that you see
something like that once only
Sure.
because they don't give you an option.
Sure,
for
I'm just saying that
another
you see
election.
the challenge there where it's like, well, this is like a state basically, and now if you protest in support of that state, it's a terror group as well, so you're in a weird world. Like if you were to designate the IDF a terror group, can people not protest in support of Israel now because they're always supporting the IDF? That's just a really scary world to be in, I think.
Look, I don't disagree with you, but to the point you made earlier, I'm pretty reasonable. I don't like that Joe Biden pardoned Hunter, but I support it because I would have probably done the same if it was my kid. I think every parent would. If you have a chance to save your kid. And I'll go further on that. I think that the gun charges against him were bullshit. They infringed his Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, that was
completely.
crazy. Based off video recording?
That entire thing was bullshit.
4473, is that the form, the ATF form for buying a gun? Have you ever bought a gun before?
I've never bought a gun before.
Oh,
no.
the confusing thing is the first question they ask is, are you an unlawful user of a narcotic substance, including marijuana? And what does that actually mean? Does that mean you've ever used it? Does that mean you're currently high while filling out the form? Does it mean?
Well, that's where Hunter Biden got caught.
Exactly, yeah. But,
Yeah,
but
which
it's like
I
if you
think the
smoke weed
question-
and then you go buy a gun, can you fill that form out, or are you actually breaking a federal law? Nobody
But
really
the question
knows.
on its face value is also arbitrary and it violates Second Amendment in general. Are you a gun
yeah.
guy at all?
I have so many. I love guns. yeah.
Okay. So you probably agree with me on this. The question itself should be removed from the form. That's my take. There's other
I
ways
would
to
say
ask
so,
that
yeah.
question. Yeah, there's
I
other
like
ways to
it
ask
as
that
like
question.
I think it's good as an aggravating charge.
Of course,
So like
sure.
if you're high and using a weapon at the same time, maybe you get an extra ding for that or a penalty for that.
Sure,
for sure, yeah.
whatever,
But,
no
yeah.
problem. All right, Naja.
So
It's
we
not very
have,
lighthearted. Oh man. Anyway, I'm sorry.
let's lighten it up because I want to jump back on this Twitter thing. If you
Yeah.
had to pick one person to get permanently banned from Twitter,
Elon Musk.
but
Oh, sorry.
but the consequence is that you have to take over their career, who would you pick?
Elon Musk.
So
No. Maybe.
You have to take over their career, so you're the Doge czar now.
Oh, and I could disband it immediately. It would either be Elon or Trump, obviously, one of those two guys.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, so you want to be president of the United States?
Hell yeah, that'd be fun. It seems like if Trump can do it, I
what's
guess
the first
anybody
thing
can.
you would do as president?
First thing I would do as president
Yes.
is I would get the most ruthless attorney general that I could find, and we're going after all the lawbreakers on the Republican side and the Democratic side if there are any left. But oh man, there's
You're gonna wipe
be,
out the entire government.
You're gonna wipe out
The
Congress.
Senate, the
Are
House.
you
You're
ready?
gonna
Are
wipe
you ready
out
to wipe
everybody.
out
all
everybody?
those J6ers are going back in.
You can't.
Okay.
They're pardoned.
Well, I'll find out if Trump auto penned it because I guess apparently those don't count.
He wet signatured it.
Okay, well, I'll go and
And
we'll
the
double
auto
check.
pen- the auto
it better
pen
be a
is-
wet signature on every single one of those pardons.
it's
Do they have
one
to be
pardon.
individual? Okay, well, I want to see the ink on it.
It's we saw it on TV. He's signing it.
I need to make sure it's the same
One thing we
document.
know
It might
is
have been
they
a
can
second
find a way-
document. You
can
ever watch
find a way
Death
to
Note?
turn
It
around,
matters.
though. Like you can find a loophole. I'm sure he can find a
can't.
loophole.
Let me
So
put it
first
this
thing,
way.
everybody's going back to jail. What was there? How many?
Okay,
of
the
them?
more important thing is all the
1,600.
charges for Trump are coming back. The J6 one, the Mar-a-Lago documents ones, those are coming back.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Judges dismissed them. Some of them were just
Those were
tossed.
taken back because Trump won office. That's it. They were voluntarily withdrawn
No,
from the DOJ.
the Mar-a-Lago
Mar-a-Lago,
documents,
Eileen
the judge,
Cannon, she tried to fight it on some bullshit grounds.
and she won.
no,
she
she
dismissed
didn't.
them.
Yeah, but it was coming back because it was bullshit dismissal.
Okay,
Her
one-
dismissal was based on this fringe theory that the special counsel was unconstitutionally picked, which is ridiculous.
true.
No, it's not true.
Okay.
But anyway.
So you like Jack Smith?
Third thing.
Yes,
What's one more
absolutely.
thing that you would do besides wipe out the government and
only half the government.
wipe? No, I think everybody.
I'm telling you.
Once
you'd
you
have like
start
3
turning those
people
stones
standing.
yeah, there'd be nobody.
Like you'd have like
So-
AOC, who's actually not corrupt. You'd have like very few people. I can't even think of other people. Like
Would you
she's
bring
the
George
one person
back?
I say she's not corrupt.
Would you bring George back?
If he wins his election. Wait, have you?
You could appoint him something. That's what we do now. We just throw our friends.
My
hats.
third real thing would be
Okay.
hard line stance on Ukraine. It would be a hard line stance on Ukraine.
What about your stance on Israel?
Okay, they're fine. They do their thing. They're
So
not.
hold on, Zionism good.
No, I mean, I thought you were looking for like more support for Israel.
Yeah.
In honesty, without getting deep into it, there would start to become harsh repercussions for people that are in the West Bank. That would be my stance on Israel. They need to figure their shit out with the Palestinians because they keep trying to put it off, and they're going to keep getting terrorist attacked over and over again until they figure it out.
Well, the Judea Samaria region, commonly known as the West Bank, for those who
you got all your pro-Zionist talking points down. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
I
yeah.
mean, it's not pro-Zionist. I am a Zionist, Jewish. Remember,
I remember. Don't worry.
so
I was raised Catholic too,
It's-
so you know,
it's-
basically.
so I was
Jewish.
raised Catholic,
I
so
know.
yeah, I
I read
get
your
it.
whole Wikipedia. I got it.
So
Don't worry.
there you go. So the entire like dispute there, I agree with you, needs to be resolved because it's an unresolved, ongoing dispute for too long. Jerusalem, should it remain the capital of Israel?
Oh Jesus, you're asking me like the hardest questions in the world. I mean, it's not really a matter of.
It's a yes or no question, though.
The real question is, should the city be divided again between East Jerusalem, Old City, and then the current Jerusalem? Because the big fight is over how you divvy up.
So you want to go back to the 1963 lines?
Both sides are going to have to make painful sacrifices, and I
think-
don't know what both sides are willing to give right now because both sides are super incentivized to just continue the conflict.
After 5 U.S. presidents failed to make Jerusalem the capital after it was designated by Congress, Trump made that move. I doubt that Israel is going to want to go back on that.
Sure, well, but I mean, Trump. Nothing. He just recognized it.
He recognized something that every president said they would, and they didn't, right?
Well, because it was a really bad idea.
I don't think it was a bad idea.
It
I
was a
think
bad idea.
Congress had rectified it in the 90s.
Yeah, but you're giving Israel recognition for they haven't resolved their issue yet. That's what arguably.
Can I say something about what I genuinely think about the Gaza Strip and that region?
Be brave, yeah.
They have been at war since their inception. I don't think it's going to be resolved in our lifetime. I mean that.
It all depends on if the U.S. takes leadership over it and makes it resolved.
But the problem is when the U.S. takes leadership in a situation like that, you radicalize more people in the Middle East. You do.
It was Carter's commitment that got peace between Israel and Egypt eventually, and it was. It's possible. Like people said that Israel would never be friends with the surrounding countries, but the reason why it happened was because some Arab leaders, whether it was Sadat in Egypt, whether it was the King of Jordan, people have taken steps to make it happen, and it has happened in a formal way, and it can happen with the Palestinians. But we don't have to go into that. I'm just saying that both sides are incentivized to fight, and someone needs to come in and say, my suggestion was you drop a huge box of nukes, and then you tell both of them, you guys need to negotiate, and then by the end of the negotiations, whoever was willing to give up more gets all the nukes, and then they can blow the other person up. So they either come to an agreement and they're good,
You're
or
absolutely insane.
that's
you
that's
mean
good.
that?
That's
I dig
one way to do it.
know. It's creative thinking.
That's what you do.
I mean-
Whoever's willing to give more, and then maybe during this
Do you
process,
really mean that?
Sure, yeah. You
With
could drop it
nukes?
right between. Yeah, why not? Yeah.
That's more of a King Solomon take. You know.
There you go.
Like,
Well, yeah, kind of. Yeah.
yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah, really.
one way to
fuck
do
it.
it.
You literally just
Fuck
said
it.
it. That's like the fuck it attitude.
Fuck
yes,
it,
I
yeah.
got it. Okay. All right. So how did you get into gaming and go and the pivot point, right? Because I'm pretty sure gaming was a lot more lucrative.
No, probably not. The
You think you make more money talking head and politics today than you did with gaming?
Absolutely, yeah.
Really?
There's not a lot of money in politics, despite what people think. There's a lot of money talking about politics.
How much money are we talking about?
Let me just say that there's a small part of me, and I feel revolting saying this, that almost supports Trump just because of the tax stuff, okay? We're big tax bills, all right? Let's just say that.
I mean, dude.
No, I'm just kidding. I would never support Trump.
Tell
What was the
Tell
question?
me about your video games.
Yeah, I played a lot of video games growing up. Learned to read pretty quickly playing video games because back then it was all text. Thank God. So
How old were you when you started?
I don't
Normal
know,
kid age?
4 or 5. A long time ago.
What was your first system?
Wait, do you guys remember? Oh, because we're all the same age.
Yeah.
Oh, in my world, everybody's like 20 years old. So, oh my goodness.
What's the system?
Do you remember the game a long time ago? It was a combo game on the Nintendo, and it was Duck Hunt and Mario.
Yes.
Yeah, with the gun.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
that was
orange
my-
gun.
That-
Yeah.
I had that.
Yeah, that was
There
my.
was a triple that had the track and field and the Mario and the Duck Hunt. That's the one I had.
Oh, I didn't. You
was
were.
great.
You must.
So
have
do you
been
remember?
Oh.
one of those upper
That
middle
was the
class
first gaming
families? I
system
guess.
I ever
I'm just
owned
a
is
few
that one.
years older. And
Do you remember the famous blow into the cartridge if it's not working
Yeah.
and stick it back in?
Oh
So
yeah.
all kids knew about that.
Or you get like
that
Q-tip.
wasn't-
You get Q-tip.
You shove
How
it
did we
in.
know about that? Because we did not have internet. How did we all? You knew.
Q-tip?
Yeah, the Q-tip and the hydrogen peroxide, and you'd like
Yeah,
swipe
yeah.
the contacts. Yeah.
How did we
Good
know
old
that?
I don't know.
That's a universal thing. We didn't have internet then.
And it was never proven to actually work.
No, but it worked.
But it always works. So we've had we've spoken to a couple gamers here and there
Yeah.
on this podcast. Is there anyone that you just absolutely cannot stand and you would love to debate them?
In the gaming world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I feel like I know
don't
the answer to this one.
No. Who?
No,
You're friends
not
with
Aiden
everybody?
Ross?
Is he a gamer?
He's a Twitch streamer?
Kick streamer, I think.
Does
right?
that count?
Kick, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh, I'm
I mean,
old.
the problem is he's kind of like I'm not trying to be mean, but he's not like a political person. It's all kind of like memes and
It
stuff.
wouldn't be. Okay, so how about
yeah.
this?
well, but hold on. He interviewed Trump. Rode in a
Yeah,
Cybertruck
Trump isn't
with
like
him.
a political person. He's a fucking joker as well. I mean, what do you mean?
He's the president of the United
He's literally. If you listen to Donald Trump, Donald Trump has a 40-word vocabulary that he uses in every single interview.
What's two of his favorite
Come on,
words?
give us a Trump sentence then, based on your own assessment of his vocabulary.
Ask me a complicated foreign policy question.
Destiny, what will you do to resolve
President
the
Trump.
trading deficit between the United States and the United Kingdom?
Okay, the United Kingdom, I can't do his accent, but the United Kingdom has treated us so horribly. And Biden was a sucker. They've taken advantage of us. We're being treated horribly by them. And I'm going to talk to them, and we're going to have the best deal. It's going to be so much for the United States. I've never seen so much as there's going to be for the United States. Illegal immigrants. Basically that would be his answer, yeah.
That's definitely.
And you would never get, I've had this challenge running for conservatives for 8 years. Give me a single clip where Trump is speaking about anything, where it sounds like he actually knows what he's talking about.
People aspired to be Donald Trump all throughout the 80s
Yeah, and some
90s
people
and the
aspire to be.
early-
What does that mean?
No,
What do you mean?
no,
Who cares?
Absolutely
Well, you
not.
said throughout
No,
the 80s
no.
and 90s, he had the rich party boy. Oh, I'm doing cocaine. Got a lot of women, got a lot of baby mamas. Like, he had that persona.
Trump
back
never
in the
ever
80s,
had
90s.
Alcohol. What are you talking about?
I doubt he did cocaine. Trump seems like one of those guys who's
He
like,
doesn't do
I don't
drugs.
drink because it changes my mind.
Yeah,
Whatever.
like
You don't think he does drugs?
No.
God.
No, absolutely.
How
no.
deluded.
He's square like that. Like
I think
President
he is.
Trump is
I think he'd be
square.
a better guy if
no
he did
drugs, no
he
alcohol.
needs to do drugs. I think it would loosen him up a little
He
bit.
definitely, he allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly, unless he wants to come here and sit down and talk to us. And clear it up for us.
That would be
'Cause I would love
epic.
for him to sit
We
in
could
the
go to
chair.
White House. Let's make it easy.
We'll come to you.
I'd love to sit down
And I'll
with
do your
President.
hair. I'll bring my wig spray. So, no, absolutely. Like, we will come to him.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, so I got to ask you a question
Okay.
because this comes up a lot on the internet.
Yep.
What is your relationship, if any at all, with Nick Fuentes?
It's not what some people seem to think it is after recent events. I promise you that.
You love this. The smile on your face answering that.
I did Google some stuff, but
What'd you
don't-
see?
I don't want to tell you about it.
I love your reaction on it. By
Yeah,
the way.
here's-
Like when some,
okay,
I don't know
but-
who show you are, and you're like, shit happens, and you're just like, it is what
What
it
are
is.
you gonna do? Yeah. So, like I said, my penchant coming into the political world was I was a left-leaning person politically, but I kind of had the right-leaning, the masculine, like debater archetype traits. So that gave me, I think, a unique proclivity for arguing with much further right people who also do a lot of debate. So my background with Fuentes is I think we had our first debate, I want to say like 7 or 8 years ago. And then we've kind of gone back and forth since then. He ditched me for Kanye West.
So, that relationship with Fuentes is always brought up, right? So,
Yeah, among other people, yeah.
okay, so he broke your heart.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, come on. You just sounded heartbroken. That leads me into my next question. There's a famous video online that circulated, which...
A lot of deepfakes out there, too, so who knows what's real or not.
True,
Go ahead, yeah.
but the video gets tested for deepfake. You kind of shrugged your shoulder and said, like, it is what it is, and it sucks. And so you're not going to tell us if that video was Nick Fuentes?
It's not Nick Fuentes.
But you
no.
can confirm that that was you.
I guess if people have doubts in their mind, then I'm not going to say anything to
you
assuage
can't
those
deny
doubts.
it. You can't deny
And for the
He
record,
never denied it, by the way.
And for the record, I've not seen the video. I only read about it. So
I saw
does
it.
anybody have like a clip that they can?
You don't want a clip of that.
We don't want a clip of that.
It was it not some of your finest work?
It wasn't even, that was probably the saddest part. It absolutely was
So
not.
are you saying, are you far more talented than you showed off in the video?
I would hope so. But
Okay, so-
Jesus, this is a video of me giving a to a guy, okay? That's what we're talking about right now, okay? I think you're like very much not, yeah.
Okay, so I was not in the know. Oh,
didn't wanna
Jesus
say
Christ.
it. I didn't
Okay,
wanna
yeah.
say it.
This is the video we're talking about. yeah.
So I'm going to ask you this question just because
Yeah.
it begs the question. I know
Raises the question. Go ahead.
you were married.
We broke up a while ago, but not because of that, so.
do you have children?
One child.
Okay.
Oh, you have kids?
Yeah, that's why I was in Nebraska before this. I was hanging out with him because it was his birthday.
How do you protect your
happy
kid from
birthday.
all of? Because I know you said
Your whole life's
Your
online.
entire life is online.
whole what?
How do you protect your kid when your
There is
entire
no.
life?
Initially, I thought about it, but he's 14 now, so he's like an actual like human being. who
Yeah,
is-
yeah.
So at this point
He's at
now,
that age where
just-
he's curious.
How do you explain that
he's
video to
beyond
him?
curious. I don't talk to my son about explicit videos that are circulating about me.
So here's the question.
Yeah.
As somebody who doesn't have kids, you have a kid.
Yeah.
How do you navigate the internet? A big issue between my husband and I now is he wants kids. I've always subscribed to that plan, but I'm terrified of putting kids in the world with my entire life being online. And
With Donald Trump as president.
well, no, that has nothing to do with it. With my entire life being out there, and I don't want my kid to go suffer. Like, how do you protect your kid from that?
These days, I don't think you can. Like in our
How are
days,
you managing? That's my question.
My only goal with my son is to make sure that he feels comfortable talking to me no matter what. Like, I don't ever want him to think that he can't talk to me about a thing.
Yeah.
And then to make sure that at least he's hitting his baselines in school. So he's passing all his classes, ideally getting A's or B's.
You're doing a dad thing.
Yeah.
Being a parent.
And as long as he's got those two things, like
you accept B's, though. That's a pretty cool dad.
Well, I'm not Chinese.
That's actually
Okay.
fucked up. That's really fucked
We've
up.
said way more fucked up on this show.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he
So stereotypical. Oh my god, so bad.
as long as he's like not having a huge difficulty. I mean, he engages a lot now online. The issue is that like when we were kids, you could legitimately make the argument that parents should be monitoring their kids' online activity. And if the kid is getting up to no good, unless it's a very clever kid, the parent is probably fucking up. These days, every device in the world is connected to the internet. Like we had it at one point, he was grounded from his phone because he had gotten in trouble being too edgy. And we found out that at school, there was a friend that was like basically bringing him an extra phone to use like, on the bus and shit. And it's like, fuck, dude, at this point, they can make any account.
Kids are
They can lie about
peddling phones now?
Yeah, it's way too
Kids
online,
with two
so-
phones, though? Bro.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, right.
They're like probably peddling phones.
A
like, you
world
know,
of
like
catfishes.
Yeah.
This future generation.
Yeah, that's another one. Like, listen, bro, if just don't send any pictures of yourself to anybody because who knows who you're talking to.
So back to the.
Okay.
Are you talented at doing that?
I have more experience with women, okay?
So what?
Oh,
made
so
you do
hold
it?
on. Your experience with men is limited?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So is it a piquing interest now, or have you always known I have an interest in both?
I don't know, probably around 29, 30, I was like, yeah, why not? Let's try it.
But was it a curiosity you had that you just ignored? Or
I just never really thought about it, I guess.
Really?
I went to, when my, I think kid was 6 or 7, I went to school once and they had one of those drag queens doing the reading story hour. And I just can't, it's just rotting my mind. I couldn't handle it.
I love how you did that. That's actually funny. That was actually very funny.
I try.
That's gonna be a clip. That's clippable.
So drag queen story hours turned you gay.
Basically.
Oh
yeah.
my God. Oh, right.
Not fully gay. I
God.
stopped going, so they didn't get me all the way. It was crazy. We were walking out, and they were like, "Do you want these prep pills?" And I was like, "I don't know what the fuck that is." And I was like, "Give them to the sixth graders."
You're the first person that I've ever heard say it just kind of was a thing that happened in your mind at 29 years old.
Yeah.
No curiosity before.
Not really, no.
So that means that means you can probably be straight one day.
Girl, I tried that. It didn't work out.
It ain't gonna
At
happen.
the very least, you could be straight-ish, right?
Ish.
But a lot of people would argue that sexuality is kind of fluid anyway.
Oh,
The big difficulty when it comes to things like sexual orientation or sexual interest is to peel away like how much is a thing that I genuinely desire versus how much is a thing that's like socially like really reinforced or programmed. Because at some point, I mean, like there are, I imagine the majority of people, or at least over 50%, are genuinely straight in that they would have no interest in ever doing anything with a similar sex person. And then there are probably a good percentage of people who would, but they feel some type of shame or some type of like social revulsion towards it.
that was my case.
Sure,
until
maybe, yeah.
until I freaking just kicked the bucket.
bucket,
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, that is what it is.
It was
It's so
social.
interesting.
I had social fears of being gay or being with another dude. I was married, for crying out loud, to a woman. So,
But thankfully, progressives paved the way for you to become even a gay Republican congressman. How cool
You
is
know-
that?
you know,
Wow.
look,
Thank the
I-
progressives.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna say this: I 100% will give certain wins to the progressive movement. The problem is that they've gone from progress to insanity with certain instances, like boys and girls sports.
But it's the same thing on the Republican side where it's like, okay, do you think that like somebody for domestic violence, there should be some type of red flag law to flag somebody to where it's like, okay, maybe there's at least like a waiting period for them to buy a firearm if they've been involved with a certain thing. When conservatives say no on these issues, they're not thinking, I want that abuser to have access to a firearm. They're thinking, if I give ground here, what's next, right? And I think that for progressives, it's the same thing. If we give ground here, what are they coming for next? Because once abortion went away and they started attacking trans people, what were they talking about next? Gay marriage, right? Is what progressives are worried about. So everybody's so worried about this sliding into losing everything that they have to defend the outer perimeter of the most extreme examples. Otherwise, they're going to be seen as weak and they're
Can I
going to
ask
have
a
to give up
personal
more than
question?
one.
Of course I can.
Yeah.
You have a 14-year-old, so this is probably a great example. If your son came and said, "Hey, Dad, I am now trans. I want to transition into being female." Are you, as a parent, going to say, "No, you can't do that"?
As soon as he says he's trans, I'm probably taking away the phone and the computer. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
Elon. Okay, Elon.
Here's what I will say
so
for the
how-
gays. Here's what I'll say for the gays. The good thing about the trans stuff is there are so many conservative parents out there who their kid has come to them like, "Dad, I need to talk to you." And the dad's like, "Oh, fuck." And the kid's like, "I think I'm gay." And the
Oh,
dad's like,
thank God.
he's not trans.
No. You know what? I joke about that all the time. Is like, thank God I grew up in the 90s when you can play with Barbies and your mom didn't instantly want to put you on hormone blockers.
Yeah.
Because nowadays little boys can't touch Barbies. Mom's like, gotta call the hormone therapist. Gotta take him to endocrinologist.
I think that's
we need
parents
hormone
trying
blockers.
to keep their kids alive.
I don't know
Like,
if that's the truth.
okay.
There's a
Maybe,
lot- there's
maybe
a
a
lot of it.
small percentage of
Yeah,
people that
I
do
think-
it.
And
but-
those are the
People are
ones that make
reading-
headlines.
Whatever happened to sissy boys and tom girls?
No, I agree. I think
Tomboy
that
girls.
especially in the
Like-
90s and the 2000s, I think you saw this really cool thing where gender categories were being exploded in terms of more tomboyish people. And then you have like your men there was the whole metrosexual movement where men could like groom themselves. But if you're starting to tell like a
used to hang out
kid
in the
like you need
village.
to get like on drugs or puberty blockers because of you're
You and
depressed in
George
school.
agree on that.
Oh, look.
Maybe,
you know,
yeah, but
Here's the deal. I used to hang out in the village, so dyeing your hair blue and putting piercings all over your face really don't faze me, right?
Sure.
I even had a tongue piercing at one point in my
But the
life.
difference is back then we could say like you're going through a phase, you're goth,
was
or
a phase
whatever.
for me, for
but
sure.
But to seriously answer the question, if my kid said that they were
Yeah.
trans or whatever, like I would have a serious conversation about it because I do think trans people are real. I think that if you really
think
are
they're real.
trans, you're going to know way before you're fucking 18. You're going to know as soon as puberty starts. But the difficulty is teasing out like how much of these struggles that you're having are like the ordinary struggles of adolescence and everything else versus is there actually, like a body dysphoria, gender dysphoria thing. Don't do that because your side would ban all of that treatment for minors.
He agrees with you, though.
But that's the deal. I
Like,
agree with you. I've said this to you in the onset. I dish out equally to both sides. I
Sure.
think extremism fails Americans. Gender dysphoria affects.
But you still like Trump? Sorry. My bad. Go ahead.
I love Trump,
had
and
to
you're
throw
not
that
going to
in.
change my mind.
I know.
Gender dysphoria equates for 1% of the American population. And some argue that it's actually less.
Sure.
But in rounding up 1%, that puts us at about 350,000 Americans, right? At best. I don't even think that there's that many trans people in this country. So if we're really going to talk about it, we need to talk about gender dysphoria care and making that wildly available so people can actually go and really find out in with a proper diagnosis. But anyway, look, we can talk about this shit forever.
Oh, yeah.
I like to do this. We like to do this end of the show segment. So 2 truths and a lie, Destiny.
2 truths and a lie. When I was younger, I had an issue with my car. It wouldn't start, and I was kind of broke, and I couldn't afford a tow truck. So I had a friend push my car 4 miles to the auto repair shop, and we did it by tying pillows to our bumpers, and I was on the cell phone with him, and he drove as he pushed my car with his car for like 4 miles down the road. My second thing is my first serious girlfriend in high school was super religious, or at least her family was super religious. When we were hooking up, we were in this church, we were bad kids. We were hooking up in like the sealed off area for like the, I guess for like crying kids or whatever. And then we came out and there were like probably like, there's always some people in church. There's like 5 or 6 people praying who like started giving us death eyes or whatever. So all those people definitely just heard us like hooking up for like 30 minutes, which was mortifying. And then she got kicked out of that church because the pastor guy recognized her. That's the second thing. And then the third thing, my grandma was a hypochondriac, kind of, like you. She had a lot of pain medication, and she would have me run and pick up all the pain meds for her. And eventually she developed dementia and stuff was kind of not okay with her brain. And she moved down to Florida down here with my parents. And I had like this whole cabinet full of like hydrocodone, oxycodone, and Vicodin that I started to get advice from a coworker on how I could sell all this stuff because I was like working class-ish. Like I didn't have very much money. And I was like, this is like the best financial opportunity I'm ever going to have in my life to make a ton of money. Those are my 3 things. Okay.
Okay. So,
I think this is actually interesting because they're in depth.
Very
They
in-depth
could all
stories.
be truths. Very easily.
So I mean, obviously you think quick on your feet and you can elaborate fast. So those were very well thought together. Now, for some reason, the car just stands out as something that I can almost see you doing. Like, bro, just slowly push and you have your car neutral, and I can see that.
I'm going to say the lie was the having sex in church.
He didn't say sex. He said hook up.
Oh,
But were you
making noises.
Were you alluding to sex?
No, hooking up.
Okay.
Because we were both kids and didn't want to get anybody pregnant.
Okay.
Okay.
So we define hooking up.
Different. Yeah.
Way different.
Yeah.
Black
that's
people
why
and white folks definitely define hooking up way different.
That's why. I'm going to say the lie is I can see you pushing pills, dude. I'm sorry. I can actually see you pushing pills. So I'm going to say the lie is a church story.
Better on?
I think that the lie is the pill pushing. I think you loved those pills with your friends and you enjoyed them together.
Wow.
So which one is the lie?
The car story in the beginning actually happened. That was terrifying. The worst part was there's a really big intersection. We had to make like a left turn and my car wouldn't start. So I'm fully relying on my friend pushing me. So I'm on the phone with him and the light turns yellow and he's like, we got to stop. And I'm like, it's an uphill. If we stop, you're never going to be able to get me through this intersection. So I'm like screaming at him and he's like, okay, I'm going to push you through and stop. So he slams his brakes and I go sailing through this intersection with no power on my car. And then I'm just rolling, waiting for him to catch me. So that was terrifying. That actually happened. The
exciting.
church story is totally made up. I would never get caught publicly doing any of that.
I
Good job.
I told you look like a pill pusher.
I think he looks like a pill
story-
taker.
Now, I did a little tricky. The pill story is half true in that I actually never used any drugs until I was like 30. I think I tried weed like twice, but I was a good kid like that, I guess.
You got active at 30. Damn.
But the The pills, I had talked to a coworker on it, but I'd accidentally thrown out all of them before I'd realized the value. So I remember I took one of these slips because back then, I don't know if it's still this way, but you could go to a pharmacy and just say, here's this and here's my grandma's phone number or something.
Yeah.
And they give you everything. And I showed this to a friend at the casino. He's like, bro, this is like $3,000 worth of shit. I'm like, wait, $3,000?
street
Because I
value.
didn't know what any oxy had. I didn't know what any
So
of these
my
things
mom
were.
was
Like,
my mom was a cancer patient, and she died and left an arsenal of methadone, morphine, oxycodone, OxyContin.
I had a pillowcase that I
You sold
filled.
it to Congress.
I had a
I
pillowcase.
put it in the soda bottle and threw vinegar as they instructed, never realizing there was a street value to it.
I had a pillowcase that was
And I could
completely
use the
full.
money. And
But
I
where do
couldn't
you go
use
to
the money.
sell this stuff? Like,
Well, I
you
would
put it
have
on
just told them to the
Craigslist,
people that worked
like-
at the casino, but I had a pillowcase that was full of these bottles, and I threw it down the trash chute. And after he told me at the casino how much money I'd thrown away, me and my girlfriend were
tried
dumpster
to go-
diving. Yeah, to try to find the pillowcase because it was like
Someone got
100
happy.
bottles of this.
Someone got happy.
Somebody found that
Somebody
stuff.
found-
and-
Bring
You
them
did-
back to the pharmacy.
No, or put them in a 2-liter container and throw vinegar over. It's like it's a whole, and then not put it in the water system either. Don't flush it.
Oh
So
my
yeah, but anyway, Destiny, this was fun. We had fun. Thank you for coming on Pants on Fire. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, it was wonderful meeting
Sorry,
you.
George made it so political. You know, I
It's
just wanted to
okay.
talk
It's
pop
okay.
culture and stuff, but you know, Trump and Israel and Ukraine and man,
Not
geez.
gonna happen.
Good old George.
Okay, so that was fun.
I like Destiny.
I like him too.
also really like him.
Me too. That's crazy.
He is a very
disagree with him.
likable human being, even
Yeah.
though you disagree
Yeah.
with some things. You guys found some meeting points.
We don't have to agree with one another in order to be friends.
Unless some of the things that you feel passionately about abolish my civil liberties, freedoms, life, then
I mean, yeah, if you're gonna harm me, sure, but I don't think that's the case.
not today it wasn't.
No.
Let me think.
No. I don't think anybody wants to harm one another. I genuinely think like that about the world.
I think most people are generally good,
Yeah.
but there are some people who want utter destruction and chaos.
Look, sure, but I think that there is
and those are the ones that are running the free world right now.
I disagree, but here's what I'll say. I believe that everybody is better than their worst mistake or flaw.
So I think Destiny, and it is so interesting, like the sexuality talk, because as a new piece of his sexuality was opened.
Well, we were literally talking about
so late in
BJs here.
life.
Like, are you kidding?
Yeah, like so late in life. I'm so interested in that because who else in this room is prone to a mind change?
I mean, it's not a mind
And not even in this
change.
room. Like who else out there watching is prone to that?
I think it takes a lot of courage to just be open like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
It does.
and
To be like, I wanna try
honestly,
it.
he wasn't making a big deal out of it. Like that's what more people need. I think people need to be like, hey, this is my sexuality. It doesn't actually matter where it came from. At some point, he decided that this is what he was into, and there's no shame for it.
Yeah, no,
That's awesome.
I think it's great. Personally, here's how I look at it. I don't care what you do in the bedroom. So I think doing and having those conversations are empowering for people
Yeah.
listening. Do you know how many times I get DMs? You encouraged me that it was okay to be a conservative and gay and be public about it. Do you know how many times I get that on DMs?
5.
No, actually a lot. When I first got elected, you hateful, absolute vile person. And you're whispering there in the back. 6. I received a box, like literally by the time I was sworn in, because you get elected in November, you get sworn in January.
Yeah.
I was handed over a box of mail. And a bulk of it, I still have all of this, was people telling me how me being a gay man elected to the Republican Party inspired them, gave them hope, this, and the other.
They're
even
like, we do
liberals,
exist.
like literally even liberals saying like, that gave me hope. I'm like,
Okay.
wow, amazing.
George Santos, the beacon of hope.
Whatever. Like seriously, whatever. But anyway, I think we had fun. I think what's important here is that I think we do a good job at is showing people that you don't need to agree in order to have a respectful, in-depth conversation. We talked about politics. We
Period.
talk about sexuality.
Yes.
We talk about a lot of hot topic buttons. And guess what? We agreed. And
we learned.
Walks of life, and we
Yes.
learned. And I think that's important. And that's why Pants on Fire with George Santos has to be on your to-do list. Every Sunday at 7 p.m., we drop. And if you're not subscribed and if you don't have alerts on,
Be nice, because you seems like you're like preaching at them right now.
I'm not preaching.
You're doing the politician hand.
It's the let's
Ask
go,
them nicely.
Mamma Mia.
You're like, if you're not, you're doing like the politician
So,
hand.
You know what? Look, I'll say it this way. subscribe to our YouTube page.
Please.
Put alerts on our
Please.
YouTube page.
Thank you.
Wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, wherever, just join the fun.
We are everywhere you are. Literally. Find us. Come see us. Talk to us. Engage with us. We write and fight back.
See you next week.